Welcome Pythoneers or Pythonistas. So the last collection type in our survey is the Python tuple. Python tuple. Tuples construct simple groups of objects and they work exactly like lists. However, the major difference is tuples can't be changed in place. That is, they are immutable. Tuples, the expression that create a tuple is written using parentheses. A simple tuple is usually written as a series of items in parentheses. Now, tuples share most of their properties with lists. However, they don't support as many as methods as lists. There is a reason for that because tuples are immutable. So now, like lists, tuples is also ordered collection of arbitrary objects. It can also be accessed by offset of the category. These are immutable sequence, the major difference from the list. One more important difference is tuple is fixed length, whereas list is variable. List and dictionary are variable. And tuples is also heterogeneous and arbitrarily nestable. And similar to the list, tuple is also an array of object references. And the following are the basic expressions to generate tuple object and to do various operations with tuple. Let's begin with simple literal or expression to generate a tuple object. So basically an open and closed bracket, that's a parenthesis, an empty parenthesis will make an empty tuple. And when you include an a single item inside it, a string object in it, inside the parenthesis, what you get is one item tuple. And then if you use this is another way of constructing a tuple. So you don't need to use even parenthesis to make a tuple. If you just give 0 and that's an int object, and a string object, 3 another int object, you get a 3 item tuple. And a 2 item tuple with a string object and int object which is enclosed inside the parenthesis and reference to the variable capital T, and a nested object with a string object and another nested tuple inside it. And a tuple of items in iterable as similar to the list. You can make a tuple out of an iterable item. Now let's jump into the Jupyter notebook to do some hands-on with this. So we'll begin with some of the basics of tuple, and then consequently we will enter into the tuples in action, the various operations that we do with tuples. Okay. Initially we'll make an empty tuple. Fine. So to make an empty tuple, again, this is complete statement and an expression. So we'll begin with T. T, capital T is a name, we will use it as a reference variable, and we use equal symbol, that is an assignment operator, and then an empty parenthesis, which is a literal or an expression to generate an tuple object. So with the whole statement makes and generates a tuple object and references it to name capital T. Now let's check what is the capital T. It's a tuple. It's a tuple object. Nice. So then we will see single item tuple. So to make a single item tuple, you just include one string object inside a parenthesis. What we get is a single item tuple, and the name of this tuple is tuple object is PW. That's a password. Then we have three item tuple. So for example, I just want to make a marks record for a student which is immutable, so it should not be changed in place. So that's the reason I have chosen tuple object in spite of a list or some other object, because if you use a list that can be changed in place, whereas tuple is immutable, so we can actually use it to store some records which can be changed in place. So everything has a specific purpose. So now we got this is the marks record of one of the student in our course batch. So then we will enter into the nested tuple. So again here the referencing variable for the tuple object is T, and this is the nested tuple. We have a string object inside the tuple, and then we have a tuple object which is nested inside the another tuple. So that's what we got, and then finally we will look into a couple of items in iterable. So I just want to know what all alphabets are there in this string object for that, and I just want to store those alphabets in a tuple. So that's why I have taken a reference variable as spell alphabets, and then I use a tuple as a callable inbuilt function, and then I have used an iterable object. String is an iterable object. I just used it, and let's execute and we'll find. So HARE Krishna. So these are the alphabets that name consists of. So now we will go back to the lists in action, and we will see what all operations that we can do with the tuples. Just we'll go back to the tuples in action, and we'll see what all operations that can we do with this. And now it's time to have a rock and roll with tuples. Let's put the tuples in action now. The following are the maximum operations that we can do with tuple. We'll begin with the basic operation as it is as usual. So basic operations are done using inbuilt len function. That is one. And then as it is concatenation, and then a repetition is a routine. And then the next thing we will look into is indexing and slicing. So indexing and slicing of tuple is as similar as list. So indexing of any tuple, for example, T is the name of a tuple object. So then in that case, T of I is our offset index position. So when I call T of I get whatever item is there is existed in that position. And then the second one is index of index. This is index of index, t of I of j. That's how we read it. Fetches an item from a nested loop if we have it. And then the third one we will look into is slicing. You can slice the tuple. Just a minute. Yeah, now you can slice the tuple using t of I colon, we say through, and j is the item which is not included actually. So t of I, the initial index position, through j, the final index position which is not included. So this is how we get the slicing. This it slices the tuple starting from index position I through index position j. Then the most important and useful one, tuple iteration. Similar to the list iteration, we can do the tuple iteration. It can be used in loops and list comprehensions. Then the final one, not much, as we have discussed earlier, not much of type specific methods here. Finally, the most personal and native actions or behaviors of tuples. The following are all specific to tuple type only. So index is to get the index of an item or object in the tuple, and then count the number of times that object is existed in that tuple. So with this, we will jump into the coding directly without wasting any time. The tuples in action for us. Let's bring it up. Let's bring it on. Okay. So tuples in action, we'll begin with the basic operation. The first one is concatenation for us. So if you remember the polymorphism, again plus is used for the different objects. Plus is addition for the int, float and complex, whereas the same plus is for concatenation for the different other type of objects such as the dictionary, list, and then tuple here. Just I'm repeating the same thing again just for your benefit. Okay, fine. Uh, so now we have two tuples, that's 1 comma 2 and then 3 comma 4. We'll concatenate both tuples and we'll get the 1 comma 2 comma 3 for a common universal tuple. So now the second one is length. We'll find the length of the tuple. That means how many items or objects basically. Item is a general term to use, but specifically what all items that are inside a tuple or objects. So now 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 5 comma 7, these are all int objects. So how many items are there inside our tuple? So these are 5. So we have a 5 items in it. Now we will do a repetition. So I have 1 comma 2 tuple. I just want to repeat this 1 comma 2 tuple 5 times. So to make a bigger tuple. See, this is what 1 comma 2 got repeated 5 times. So now we will look into the second operation that we do with the tuple, that is indexing and slicing. In indexing, it is as similar as list. For example, we have I have different passwords for the different websites and different applications. So now I just put all those passwords together in one tuple so that it can be changed in place, because tuples are immutable. So now out of these passwords I want to get the password from this password tuple. I just want to get the password which is in index position 1. So let's see. So this is that password and index of index. Now here I have nested passwords, and then out of this nested passwords I want to get an item from this from the tuple which is in the index position 2. So I just want to get that item. For that I used name of that tuple object nested passwords, and then first indexing, that is nested passwords of 2 of 0. This will give you the nested password, the item which is in the nested tuple. Then we'll go for the slicing. Slicing is as similar as others. Now nested passwords, that pwds is our tuple object. Now out of this tuple object I want to get an item from 0 till 2, let's see, and obviously 2 is not included. And now it's time for the tuple iterations, or list or tuple comprehension. And the one point to be noted here is, by default, to make a tuple, either you can use parenthesis, or if you don't use any parenthesis, if you just give 1 comma 2 comma 3, x is equals to 1 comma 2 comma 3, still what you get is a tuple. So that's the reason for, if it is a list comprehension, you must have to mention, use square bracket literals, so that only it can understand it's a list. Whereas for the tuple you don't need to give a parenthesis. You just write a code in a simple for loop way. So for x in passwords, and then print x. So this is what the for loop we use. Now it is a membership. You're just checking whether this password is there in pwds or tuple or not. So this is a list comprehension example, because on top we have seen tuple comprehension, and here it is a list comprehension. List comprehension is I'll explore one more time so that it will be useful for you. So whatever here we have writing is a target variable. First you define a target, you just give a target variable and its operation. So if any arithmetic operation or mathematical operation, whatever you want to do with that, this is our target, what you want to do. And then as usual the for loop works. Okay, for and x is the same variable, the target that we have mentioned, but here we call it as a loop variable because it is inside the loop. And then in is a membership operator, and then our tuple. So we used a tuple inside our list comprehension. So now whatever item is there inside this tuple got squared 14925. So that's how it's beneficial. So now we don't have much tuple type specific methods. We will just look into them. One is indexing, finding the index of an item inside the tuple. So we have JSDJ item inside our tuple. We'll just cross check it whether we have it or not. See, here it is. That's a PWD's. So I don't know whether. So here it is. This is our PWDS tuple object, and these are the passwords in it. Now ASJSDJ is 0 and then 1 and then 2. So this is the 0 offset position index. So now I want the index of this ASJSDJ. Let's execute. So it is 0. It's absolutely right. Similarly, I want to count how many times this is there. So now we have only one password identical to that. So that is 1. That's fine. So now with this We are absolutely fantastically finished with tuples and their tuples theory, and then various operations that we can do with the tuples. So I hope you enjoyed it. So what you do is you just practice it again and again so that it will be very helpful, and then in addition to that, you just keep liking it, keep subscribing it, and then keep loving it, and keep spreading the word to your friends so that everyone can benefit it from this. So thanks, and I'll see you in another session.